Gene, great night last night.
Morning.
Huh?
Morning. I'd like to call the Finance and Budget Committee to order. And
Judge
ask
Cross
for a motion of
everybody's.
approval of the minutes from the prior meeting. Moved by Supervisor Bruno, seconded by Supervisor E2. Any discussion or changes? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, privilege of the floor and public comment. Mr. Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd just like to address the committee. Just a few short minutes ago or so, personnel met, we did refer a resolution to you from the treasurer's office to give someone a grade bump. That's an increase in salary. I was a little confused, but we do have a resolution that states that we don't do that anymore. So it did pass my committee. Being the chair, I was careful about how we led that discussion. So I just wanted to pass it along to this team that you may want to look hard at whether or not this is a mid-year raise that we try not to do. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Yes.
What was the resolution that we don't do give raises mid-year?
Want to do it during the budget process.
Okay.
Right.
And there's
So
a
we're really trying
resolution
to put
that
a stop
states,
to it. I thought this was a creation of a new position.
Right.
I was a little confused at the time, but I just wanted to pass that along to this committee. And I'm sure that there's others at the head table that might add some more information in relation to that, but I just want to make sure I got that out to you guys.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So noted. The action agenda, number one is the request for transfer of funds as attached to the agenda. Care to move transfers? By Supervisor Bruno. Seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any questions or discussion? See, it's a pretty hefty transfer of money for overtime in the corrections. $350,000 from the regular salaries. Little chart there on the next page, it shows the overtime. Looks like last year was
Banner year.
way excessive. Yes, Mr. Brown.
Do we know? Is there any rationale? I mean, why is this the way it is?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's primarily the vacancies they have in the corrections. They have, I believe, 4 right now vacancies. And they have a certain staffing requirement that they have to meet that's driven by the state. Each one of the components of the jail. So based on that staffing requirement, the only way they can cover that is with overtime. And so it's been a challenge for them year after year, I believe. It's been about the 3rd year in a row where they've had high amount of overtime in the corrections department.
Again, this is mandated by the state that you need to maintain certain.
Yeah,
staffing.
they have certain staffing levels. Jail.
I toured the jail last October and with Lieutenant Farmer when asking several of them, Lieutenant Clifford, what's one thing you could have for the jail? You know, a new security device or reconfigurations. They all said just more people. We just need more corrections officers. So if the jail or the prison did sadly close in Washington County, if we could ever hire some of them, it would be huge.
We do have, we have 2 additional people coming out of training right now to be qualified. So that'll help a little bit. But again, if Great Meadow does close, we'll probably pick up corrections officers.
By any chance, do you have a number of positions that need to be filled?
The number, how many?
Yeah.
I still think it's 4 in addition to that. Not counting the 2, counting the 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they have 4 total vacancies. I can.
Thank
Any other discussion on, number 1? Not a call the, vote, all in favor? Opposed? Here. Number 2 is, items and requests to be discussed by the county administrator, Mr. Taplin. A is the journal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Journal report of transfers. There are some high dollar amounts on this journal. I looked at, they're pretty straightforward. And they're all funded. And this is just reallocation of funding. Tammy, did you have anything you wanted to add on that? I think like I said, we thought they were all. There are no questions. I'll move on to item B. And I'd like to take item 2B and 2C together, basically. This is a request, a grant application with the New York State Department of State for an amount of $25,000 for the 2024 statewide investment in more swimming grant. And basically, initially, we thought it was going to be done at the municipal level, submitted to state. And then as we looked at it, it needs to be submitted by the county for a maximum amount of 25,000. We do have some requests from municipalities in the county. If we are awarded the grant, then we don't know how it's going to be broken down yet among those, but we'll work on that once the grant is awarded. These are both from Parks, Rec, and Railroad. Application for the grant, then an MOU with participating municipalities pursuant to the New York Swims grant made available to New York Department of State.
We can combine B and C. I'll move that.
Okay. B and C moved by Supervisor Driscoll. Seconded by Supervisor Merlino. Any comments or discussion, questions? Hearing none, I'll call the question on 2B and C. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. Item 2D is what we're doing with this. We're requesting resolution that gives us a little bit more flexibility. Workforce Development, Liza Oxendorf's group was awarded ARPA money to conduct training, and it was under guidance from the state. And we have decided we'd like to do some leadership training for supervisors in Warren County and for some department heads, and also then possibly other employees in the county. And we'd like to use about $50,000 of this funding to do so. But in order to do that, we need to have the resolution that expands basically the definition of that money. It's still under state guidelines. It follows the state statutes, but it gives us the ability to allocate this money against training that we would use for our leaders in Warren County, rather than focus entirely on the community, to be focused on someone.
Someone care to get this on the floor for discussion? Supervisor Driscoll, seconded by Supervisor Bruno. Yes. Question? So the total amount was 120,000. The total award.
The total amount was 120,000, so we just like to up to an amount. We expect the amount we're going to acquire is somewhere around 50,000.
Discussion? I'll call the question on 2D. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Number 3 is a request an item to be discussed by the county treasurer.
Sorry to be redundant. Hi, everybody. Thank you. Just to reiterate, we are asking for, 1 second. We have someone, a veteran in our department who's been with us for 14 years, and has been a stellar performer for all 14 years. She was in the front office for 6. She's been in the back office now for 8. We had a bit of a shakeup in our front office that had me look very hard at all of our employees. This individual, came to my attention because she is pinch hitting for me in the front office. And so she's now doing 2 jobs. She is one of the few individuals, she's actually the only individual that Mike Swan shared with me was a top performer, but had been challenged with getting promoted throughout the years because she had she did not have the educational requirements to get to a promoted position. She is now 70% of the way through her associate's degree and doing very well at ACC. In addition to that, now that she's 14 years, she has a combination of both the experience she needs on the job experience, as well as now, she's 70% through and will be completed mid next year with her education. Because of that, and because of the pinch hitting for the 3 months, literally keeping, I like to call it the wheels on the bus in the front office, we are requesting that she be recognized now. When I look at the accounting technician position, which is a level 19, she's literally performing 60 to 70% of this job, and she has been for quite some time without being recognized for it. So that is our request, and we would appreciate your support.
Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you. In reference to a concern that Supervisor Wild made, and I appreciate the fact that we have rules. I can't remember if it was last year that we voted on that particular thing. And it might be just semantics to me, but it seems like we've essentially terminated this individual from one position with the job description. And now the position has a different job description. So whether or not we'd be forced to go out and test for that position, or if we could just basically transfer that individual from within the department. It seems to me that that individual, even if they've been doing that work beforehand, has a different job description. It's a different, not just a different title, but different work that they're responsible for.
It's a much broader scope of work she performs than the title she's.
So
in.
I think that, at least to me, it's unfair to say it's a promotion. It's basically a new position that we're hiring from. And again, I don't know if you have to, literally put that out for a test or not. And hopefully that individual would score in the top
Be in
3.
the top 3.
That's the way that I see it. Maybe that's right or wrong, but that's the way.
That's a fair point. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'm gonna follow up on that. The other point that I think it's important for everyone to understand is that we have this within our budget because of the absences or because of the vacancies in our front office. There's 0 impact on this from a budget perspective. We have it. But I will follow up on that point, and it's a good point that you make. Thank you.
Chairman, can I just clarify?
Yes.
So the Board of Supervisors enacted the rules of the board, which was Resolution 1 of 2024. Section E7 is what addresses the issue that was raised by the chair of the Personnel Committee. And it only addresses out of unit salary increases. So that paragraph and the restriction that the board placed on themselves under the rules of the board was for out of unit salary increases. And it states salaries for all out of unit employment positions shall be set through the annual adoption of the Warren County budget only and the county's annual salary schedule except as provided herein. And it talks about filling out of unit employment positions that are vacant. When that new salary is greater than the budgeted amount and who approves that. And filling vacant department head positions. I don't believe this position is an out of unit position. It's a union covered position. So I just wanted to clarify that the rules of the board do not impact this request.
Thank you,
Let's
Mr.
give
Chair.
it-
The other point I would add is that, because someone mentioned it, whether she has to test, she will, if this employee goes into this position, she will have to take that additional test, and if she doesn't pass that test, she won't be permitted to stay in the position.
She will take the test, and I have every confidence that she will not only pass it, but be in the top three, if not number one.
Okay, well, let's get a motion to put this on the floor. What's the interest? Supervisor Drachi, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Okay, now we can further discussion. Yes, Mr. Eaton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I put a lot of stock in the analysis of our treasurer. And I bring up a recent case with economic growth. And the reason I bring this up is because it's almost identical. It was a fully funded position, not even with county dollars, but federal dollars. Something that department head was trying to get for one of their staff members for a couple of years because they were going way above and beyond. Their title wasn't accurate. We worked with the HR director and personnel officer. We got it settled and got a yes after we got a no from her. And then decided after discerning with multiple people that the most appropriate time was during the budget season. And the reason I bring that up is not because I'm the chair of that department, but because we're trying to avoid, I think, this happening because we have so many amazing employees that we want our department heads and the chairs want to go to bat for them all the time, rightfully so. We want to retain them. But it's, it's just going to keep happening if we don't do this during the budget season. And we only have a few months left, and by the time that this would get approved by the full board, I don't know what the pay differential is. I'm sure it's maybe especially a net, $600 or $1,500 or something, which is not nothing. But it's the reason I voted partially no in the last committee was because I was unclear on what our county attorney just clarified, which is definitely a helpful thing to remember. But I personally would still be a no because I just think that the correct time to do it, or is during the budget season, or this is just going to keep coming up again and again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And one of the reasons we do most of these in the budget season is because everybody kind of has money in the pay budgets about this time of year because of vacancies. So you have vacancies, you have additional salary money. But I will admit, we do like to do them in the budget cycle because it has to be budgeted for in the out year, next year. So it have to be additional money will have to come, we'll have to cover this next year.
Mr. Mayday.
Are the vacancies going to be filled, so this position would be filled if created, and then you're eliminating an account clerk position, right?
Right, a principal account clerk.
Principal.
Sorry, give me 1 second. To your point, so we have hired someone in the front office. She's actually training. Literally, there's been a 100% revamp in the front office. Because of her 6 years way back when she started with us, she knows all of the processes. So she's been training the new people. So we of the 2 vacant positions in the front office, we literally had someone start on Monday. And I believe we have an offer going out to the second one. So she's probably still going to train throughout the next month or so, and she'll be a resource for us in the back office if we should need her. But her old position is going away. It's being deleted, and she will be stepping into this principal account clerk position number 3. That again, she's been doing 60 to 70% of this job for greater than 4 years.
But just, thank you.
Did I answer your question? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with supervising to. But the only thing is you're creating a new position, correct? So she has the right to test for that and take the test for that, no matter if she stayed in her old position or wherever she ended up. Right, she has that right. It's not so much where we're giving her a mid-year raise, which essentially we are, but you're creating a new position and she has to test for that new position, right?
Correct. I wasn't clear on that, but yes, that is my understanding is the civil service rule. Thank you.
Okay,
And she will test for that.
so if she ended up staying where she is now and tested,
Just be a professional.
I mean, that's her right to test, even if she's. stayed in the-
Professional or?
You can test for a position and stay and stay.
You
where
can.
you
I
are.
don't think that was.
I know it's
clearly
not the
explained to
intent,
her
but
in the
that,
past.
yeah, and yeah, I'm learning that right now myself, but that can happen and she has that right. We're really not. She has the right, just like everyone else, to test for this new position.
Yeah.
So with that being said,
She may have had the right, but I don't know if she was
right, okay,
instructed to
Right.
do so.
I agree with that.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sounds like she's a very qualified individual. We want to retain that person. But for reasons stated by Mr. Supervisor Etu, which I agree with, at this point, I can't support this. I think I don't have any problem moving into the budget cycle. But we went through a lot, and I understand that this is kind of outside that resolution, but we try to get, and we've been pretty successful, away from doing this outside the budget cycle. So to maintain continuity, again, I agree with Supervisor E2 and Supervisor Cito. Thank you.
So just a little bit of clarification on the provisional. It's not actually, she doesn't go into the position as a provisional. She goes into it as a promotional. So it's like a promotion.
Is promotion.
It's a promotional position. She still has to pass the test in order to retain that position. But it doesn't prevent her from going into the position. Said it'd just be a promotional status.
Have we promoted other employees throughout the year? Promotions?
Within Treasury or within,
Not in your role, just in general, across all county employees. Have there been any promotions?
I can't recall any for this year.
I mean, when they come up, there's an opening. Why do we have to wait for promotion to the end of the budget cycle? This is different. I look at this differently. Yeah, that's what I was getting at a little bit, yeah.
Supervisor Driscoll.
It's a little bit different. We've brought back some per diem individuals at I believe at the level that they left the county. Again, that's maybe apples and oranges, but in bringing back, I guess, nurses and health services. They've retired and we brought them back at their old, at the rate that they left.
True. So what makes this difference is it's promotional into a position, but the position doesn't exist today until the board approves that position and then the promotion occurs. So the treasurer is asking for a creation of a position. And then she's told us of her intent to move the person into the position that's currently in this other position that they're deleting. But the action before the board and the committee and the board would be to create this additional position in the treasurer's office and delete this other position. It just so happens to be the position this person happens to be on, and then they would promote her into the new position.
Now, by doing that, you create a new position, you're abolishing the last position. If that person doesn't pass the test, which
Then
are they gone? Because now their former position is no longer, so that.
What we may want to consider is going forward and letting the treasurer create this new position, keeping the old position on the books. And then you can unfund the old position at some point if this person is promoted into it. So it might be a sequential step instead of all happening at the same time. And I'm looking to Tammy and Amanda and see if that makes sense.
You could unfund the position. You could choose to create and then unfund the existing, or we've done that usually during budget time, but we've done that in the past. As department heads best.
Okay. Yeah, I'm being scolded on all fronts.
Very gentle.
Gently, okay. Basically, what we have to do, we can't change this resolution at this point because it was passed to the finance committee from the personnel committee in a specific format. So it has to go forward as the recommendation from the personnel committee that basically is promotional for this person to go into the position. It could also always be amended. The resolution could be amended at the board meeting if we wanted to take another step that we've kind of discussed.
Mr. Driscoll.
I think Supervisor E2 asked, how much that would translate into. My quick math, and I'm not good at math, is about just over $2,700 for the if you call it 3.5 month period. So less than $3,000 when we're looking at $11,000 divided by essentially 4. So you come up with that number, $2,500 to $3,000.
Mr. Droche.
Just one other question. Are there is this person a member of the union? Any union impacts,
Yes.
contractual impacts?
This is why it's being done. It is no contractual impact to this. The person would go into this position the new position. It's a union position as well. And based on whatever the settlement is, the person would benefit from that settlement as well.
Agreed.
You, Mr. Chairman, what would happen? The position is created and posted because it's a union position. It's posted. 5 or 10 people apply for it. What happens then if someone tests better or is objectively more qualified? We would leave the old position open and that person would go back to her old position and now we have 2 people?
I am
If could
phoning a
just
friend on this.
If I could just interject, I think that's a department head determination that would be made as to what steps to take under the civil service rules. And it's certainly the supervisors and the board can consider anything in the county they want to consider, but structurally, that tends to be a decision that's made between the HR director or with the guidance of the HR director and a department head, how to deal with that situation.
Any other discussion?
Okay. How quickly would a test be done? I mean, so if you posted it, could it be March or April before we know the results?
It could possibly be the tests are scheduled through
Yeah.
the state and we already know the test. I don't know if there's a test for this through the end of the year, but probably not.
We have a motion and a second.
We have a motion, so.
Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question on number 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Hand out there.
2 oppositions? Is that correct? 3? 3 oppositions.
Sorry, who was that?
Mr. Casino, Mr.
Yeah.
Bruno.
Is there further, we're done with discussion, correct?
Right. Okay. So motion carries. It will go on to the full board.
Thank you.
Next is referrals from the County Facilities Committee. Mr. Mr. Bruno's committee, and this is to do with the airport. A is to request and to establish capital project number H 431, demolition and construction of a 6-bay T hangars in the amount of $2,500,000. Obey first. Moved by Mr. Bruno. And seconded by Mr. Merlino. Any discussion on this project? Mr. Bruno?
Well, if you look at the request form, you see the breakdown of the funding. State match out of that 2.5 million is 2.25, 90% state, local match 10%. And 230,000 of that comes from the transfer, interfund transfer, airport, the reserve airport repair project. Superintendent Hagels is with us. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, I think I'll certainly get up and talk to it. It's a FAA grant. There is a local match. We have the local match in our airport reserve. So that's where we're funding our local match from. So it's no new money that we need for this project.
And it's a good project for the airport.
It is.
Enhances it. Get rid of some old buildings, provide better.
This replaces 6 of the old T hangars with 6 new ones. And it'll increase our rental on those new hangars as well.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on 4B? Yeah, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 4B is request to increase capital project number H 403. And this is the rehab airfield taxiway lighting system. This is in the amount of $11,594.56. Moved by Supervisor Bruno, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any discussion on this item?
This was, I might did, this was additional requirement, I believe, by the FAA when they were inspecting. These are unforeseen consequences, if you will. So that's why this increase.
Call the question on 4B. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 5 is referrals from the Criminal Justice, Public Safety and Emergency Services Committee, chaired by Supervisor Geraci.
Mr. Chair, can I request that we move A, B, and C together? They're all a receipt of grant funding from New York State. They total about a little over 900,000. There's no match on these.
Mr. Geraci moves A, B, and C, number 5, seconded by Mr. Driscoll. Any questions or discussion on any of those 3 items? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Number 6 is referral from the Human Services Committee, chaired by Supervisor Driscoll. It's Veteran Services. And the request is to amend the 2024 Warren County budget in the amount of $30,000 to reflect receipt of funding from the Office for the Aging, authorized by resolution number 208, 2019. Sure. Moved by Supervisor Etu, seconded by Supervisor Geraci. Any discussion about number 6?
Essentially the transportation program.
Senior.
The seniors, yes, yeah. And there'll be a report at the at next month's or this month's committee meeting on that.
Question on number 6. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 7 is referrals from the Legislative Rules and Government Operations Committee, chaired by Supervisor Stroh. The first is A, Board of Elections. And it's a request to amend the 2024 county budget in the amount of $36,831.78 to reflect receipt of funding from New York State Board of Elections for ballots by mail grant. Moved by Supervisor Merlino. Seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any discussion on 7A? Hearing none, I'll call the question on 7A. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? 7B is a request to amend the 2024 Warren County budget in the amount of $26,599.32 to reflect receipt of funding from, again, for the New York State Board of Elections for general election grant. Introduced by Supervisor Etu, seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any discussion on 7B? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? And lastly is 7C, and I believe this is a request again to amend the 2024 county budget in the amount of $63,360.37 to reflect receipt of funding from New York State Board of Elections for poll books grant. Supervisor Etu, seconded by Supervisor Geraci. Any discussion on 7C? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 8 is referrals from the Park Operations and Management Committee, chaired by Supervisor Merlino. And it's a request to appropriate $2,584.01 from budget code A609.07. That's the deferred revenue Gaslight Village parking fees to A1625.413 Charles R. Wood Park repair and maintenance, buildings, property, and to authorize reimbursement in the same amount to the Village of Lake George for costs incurred at the Charles R. Wood Park in May 2024. By Mr. Merlino. Seconded by Mr. Driscoll.
Thanks.
Any questions or discussion on that item? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, number 9 is referrals from the Public Works Committee. Department of Public Works, and A is a request to increase capital project H411 Corinth Road, County Route 28 over Clundon Brook culvert replacement in the amount of $1,855,000. By Supervisor Etu. By Supervisor Mayday. Is this state money?
This is the project on Corinth Road for our, I believe it was called New York money. Moving the money to there. This is to, and we're not going to start the project right away. We're waiting for the town of Queensbury to finish their project on Clemson Brook on Luzerne because they're using our road as a utility. So this will be, once they get done, then we'll use it because we're going to use Luzerne Road as that utility.
Any other questions? I'll call the question on 9A. All in favor? Opposed? 9B is a request to establish the following projects. D 5112-88366 crack sealing project in the amount of $300,000. 8367 is a guide rail project in the amount of $250,000, and 8368 2024 County Route 35 Diamond Point Road in the amount of $250,000. Moved by Supervisor Merlino. Seconded by Supervisor Bruno. Any questions on those 3 projects there? They're all in the budget, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 10, Finance Committee action is required on the following personnel agenda items. Items 3 and 4. Both of them made it through personnel. 3 is a request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to create the new position of Fire Prevention and Building Code Enforcement Officer, part-time, grade 17, base annual salary of $56,356 to be effective August 19th. Moved by Supervisor Etu. Seconded by Supervisor Mayday. Any discussion on 10-3? Mr. Bruno.
We've been looking for more than a year, have had meetings with county administrator, HR director, et cetera, trying to deal with the problem in this department. Mr. Wallace is the department head there. And I think you're all aware, like many other departments, having challenged, to put it mildly, of filling positions, and these are critical because they concern inspections which are required of existing buildings, new construction, et cetera. So long story short, not having been able to fill these positions, Mr. Wallace was able to come up, I'll say, with an individual who has experience, and I believe is certified to at least to do this part-time. And it's the best we can do at this point. So again, we started down this road over a year ago, I think, with discussions and meetings, et cetera, and have had little or no success in filling several open positions in that department. And this will help somewhat to alleviate that problem. We've also talked about going outside and engaging. There are engineering firms out there that have qualified individuals on their staff, and we could contract with them to do this work at an increased expense, obviously. So I would really appreciate support for this. It'll create this part-time position, and we have an individual ready to step into that.
Just a question on that. So is this amount the full-time salary?
Yes.
And he'll be at the hourly rate of that salary?
Yes.
I support Supervisor Bruno's request. I think it could be a trend that we see in filling positions here at the county and even in private business too. That if we can get a qualified individual who's willing and able to work part-time, take that person, the experience and the qualifications that you're getting for them. And hopefully there's two of them.
Any other discussion on 10-3? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 10-4. This is a referral from the Tourism and Occupancy Tax Coordination Committee, chaired by Supervisor Merlino. And it's a request to create the new position of physical coordinator. A base annual salary, $52,674, and delete the position of principal account clerk. And again, effective August 19th. Moved by Mr. Merlino, seconded by Mr. Presido. Any discussion on number 4? Hearing none, call the question on number 4, 10-4. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anything else from
Number 9.
committee? Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering, as we were talking about Liza's appropriation of ARPA funds, is there any update on our obligating of ARPA funds, making sure none of those dollars go back to the Treasury Department, anything like that?
Good point.
And if there's nothing to note, then
Probably nothing to know. Right now, we know of, probably less than 300,000 that we think, we might end up having to reobligate by the end of the year. Planning department's still going through that. And we're actually seeing if there is funding, we could talk about some other options for that. But I'd like to know what the full amount is first. So I should have that by next month.
Anything else?
Yeah, I just, going back to number 9. I know it's after the fact, but the says the request for the 300 and then the next is 250 and 250. I believe that's how you read it. I'm not sure, but when you go to item B, that's on the printout on the request. It shows 350 for 8668 Diamond Point Road.
Okay.
So I don't know which one's the right number.
250 or 350?
According to what?
Would be what's on the.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
300 per credit.
Right, so I wasn't sure if I heard it read which way. Okay. So I'm saying, does it have to be amended, you know, in what we voted on? I just don't want it to be a problem. I'm not trying to cause some trouble.
No, it's good.
Moved by Supervisor Mayday to amend 5112, D 5112, 8368 from 250,000 to 350,000. Seconded by Supervisor Bruno. Any discussion? All question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good catch. Anything else from the committee? I do have one question. You know, it's not a big deal, but I was curious as to why the $400,000 proposed in OCTAX didn't get before the finance.
I had asked that question to the deputy clerk and she gave a pretty objective answer.
So the occupancy tax committee decides where the money goes. The finance, when it comes to you, is when they need to appropriate from the reserve, which will be coming at some point during this year. And that's when this committee will get the request to move the money from the reserve into their operating account to make actual payments. But only the occupancy tax committee rules on the contract.
Where it goes.
Their contract. A little bit.
Thank you. Privilege of the floor. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Supervisor Bruno and seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.